Okay, we're back and we're on to Chapter 11, Stress, Health, and Human Flourishing. Apparently I pushed something. Okay. We have a nice depiction of someone who's under stress on the top. And then I tried to find a picture that sort of depicted a person who's, achieving their fullest potential, really living in the moment. I don't know if your idea of living in the moment is summiting a sand dune or not. I know it's not mine. But anyway, I was trying to depict the kind of content we're going to talk about in this chapter. Okay, so stress. A really new and burgeoning field is health psychology. People have gotten really interested in the relationship between our mindset, and our cognitions and things like that, and then our actual physical health. Stress is a great example of a physical set of reactions that can be initiated just by thoughts that you're having, concerns that maybe you don't really want to address and you're kind of burying them, things like that. Many people report being affected by this generalized concept called stress. It's really hard to pin down what any individual means by stress. Last night my daughter is a senior in college, and she was talking very friendly and nice about some superficial things, and then all of a sudden she started getting really irritable, and we're like, what happened? What's going on? She's like, I just realized I have all these things I have to do. I have this paper and this group work, and I have to do this and that, and like this ginormous list of things that she has to get accomplished. She didn't say by when or anything, but she just all of a sudden, the pressure of all the things, sorry, got an email from my dad. All the stuff that's on her shoulders at any given time, we're just suddenly pushing on her. Generally in psychology, when we use the word stress, we're talking about the process of appraising and responding to events which we consider threatening or challenging. Things that are imminently doable, we won't find stressful. Like if we feel like we've got the tools, the skills, the time, the energy to accomplish a task, we won't perceive it as stressful, even if it's actually a really hard task that you're trying to accomplish, even if it's something that's very challenging, or that failure could be a threat to your job, or something like that. If you feel like you have the tools that you need, it's not going to be necessarily perceived as stressful. Whereas even a simple task, if you feel like that is the straw that broke the camel's back, that is it, I have nothing else to give, even a relatively simple task could be perceived as stress-inducing. So we're talking about really the person's appraisal of the event, and then how they're responding to the event, and then their labeling of the event as either threatening or too challenging or something like that. Okay. So let's talk about some of the terminology that we use when referring to stress. Okay, a stressor. Stressors are things that happen that can lead us into a stress response. So explosions are stressful. That's funny. I completely misspelled explosion in my smart art there. That does not say explosion. It's supposed to say explosion. Hopefully the picture speaks for itself, right? Poverty is another stressor that makes the average everyday behavior or need to be met more likely to be perceived as a threat or a challenge. Loud noises are stressful. It kind of falls under the same category as explosions. Being cold is a stressor because your body has to actually exert some of its energy just to combat the cold, and so that makes everything else more difficult and challenging. And then, airplanes are stressful, whether you're riding on one or one flies over your house at approximately 4:15, like happened at my house last night. I guess that's technically this morning. It sounded really loud, and I'm not in the flight path, so I don't know what that was about, but anyway, woke me up. Being awakened is a stressor. It woke me up, and then it was kind of scary sounding, like, is that thing crashing or what's going on? Things related to air travel can be very stressful. Now, appraisal is the term that we use to describe an individual's decision about whether or not an event is a stressor. So for some people, an explosion isn't perceived as a threatening, challenging stress. It's perceived as something exciting. My neighbor's kid, got on the internet, found all different strategies for building different kinds of things that'll explode, starting with the Mentos and the Diet Coke and escalating from there. And he didn't find the explosions stressful at all. And I didn't find them stressful as long as he invited us over to watch them. It's when you would hear the noise out of nowhere and you're like, what was that? That kind of loud noise that I find out was due to the neighbor's 15-year-old blowing things up was kind of stressful. But watching it blow up and knowing, we've got everything, out of the way and nothing's going to happen, and we know the capacity of this thing, it was more exciting than stressful. Really, it's all in your appraisal. It's all in how you judge the event. Now, stress reaction is how your body responds to a stressor. I found this cartoon on the internet that kind of illustrates some of the things that your body might undergo when it's under stress. And we'll talk about some of them in a little bit. But so we've got a stressor, which is an event external, that then you appraise and decide whether it's a stressor or just, something fun, or, like for me, walking on a rickety bridge would be a stressor. For me, I would be all sorts of stress reactions as I was trying to walk across a rickety bridge. One of the best things that can happen on a vacation from my kids' perspective is for us to come across a rickety footbridge, because that is just apparently all sorts of hilarity watching me try and cross a rickety bridge. I try and do it and be a good sport, but my heart rate's up. I'm just completely scared. I know that I am going to be the last person who can walk on this bridge, and it is going to collapse under me, and that is it, plummeting my death. I don't mind my kids walking across it because, I realize how stupid my fear is, but then on the other hand, I start to step foot on it myself and I start to panic. They find it fun. Their appraisal is fun, enjoyable. My appraisal of the exact same event is stressful, and that's what we're talking about with stress. It's all in the eye of the beholder. Okay, so there are certain components of stress. Stress doesn't happen to you. You kind of make it. I wrote on here that you participate in it, but it's your reaction to the stimulus that's causing the stress reaction in your body. It's not necessarily something inherent to the stressor. Things that can be stressors, like on my list, those are things that most people will find stressful, but not everybody. And that's the important thing to note. Not everything is perceived as stressful to everybody. So you've got your stressor, your cognitive appraisal, your body's response, and then where it gets interesting for health psychology is your coping strategies. What are you going to do to deal with the fact that you're feeling stressed out? And that's where psychology can really help. We can give healthful coping strategies. So the advantage of breaking stress into these components is that at each step we can see options for altering one of the different factors, so that you don't necessarily have to start to devolve into a stress reaction. Okay. So I don't know what this guy's doing. Let's assume he has a paper due, and and then his computer crashed. He had it mostly written, and his computer crashed, and he just lost the paper he was writing. So what could he do to reduce his level of suffering from stress? That's really where psychology is playing a really big role in stress, is helping a person who's in the midst of a stress reaction to figure out a way to cope in a positive way that can reduce the negative physical effects that oftentimes come with stress. So, hold on. Yeah, there we go. All right, so appraisal. How you choose to view a situation. So here we have a stressful event, a tough math test. Now, if you go down the left-hand side of the chart and make the appraisal that this is a threat, this math test, I really didn't study well enough, or I really didn't understand what we were learning in class prior to this test, or whatever. If you look at it like a threat, and um, not only maybe you don't feel equipped for the task, but maybe you also have put a lot of weight on the task where you say, and then if I don't do well on this test, there's no way I'm going to get the grade that I need in this class that I can move on to the next thing I need to be taking. Like if you put a lot of weight on it, if you've appraised it as threatening, and part of the reason why it's threatening to you is that it carries a lot of meaning, you're more likely to have a stress response. And ironically, the stress response may contribute to distraction while you're trying to take the test, and you end up actually doing more poorly than if you hadn't been under stress. If, on the other hand, if you go down the right-hand side of the chart and you see the test as a challenge, just an opportunity to demonstrate what you do know, and you don't apply too much weight. Well, there are 3 more tests in this class. If I blow it on this one, there's still time. I still have the opportunity, to do better. And maybe I could complete that extra credit that the teacher posted, or other things. Like if I say to myself, okay, it's my opportunity to do the best I can. There are other ways that I can try and make up for these points if I choke. It is more likely to provide the sort of arousal, stress response that is positive, that allows you to become more focused. There's a certain level of arousal that's actually beneficial, and so you want to have a little bit of it. Really, there are few conditions that are inherently and universally stressful. Usually, for most things, we choose our appraisal and our response. And now I'm not saying it like if you have test anxiety, you're sitting there going, I do not choose to feel that much stress when I'm confronted with a test. And that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying you say to yourself, you know what I feel like doing? It's just really making this 10 times harder by becoming anxious. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, we set up our reactions, and then they start to become habit. They become sort of conditioned. And so that through like classical conditioning, the presentation of a test, which is probably a little inherently stressful for everybody, but not necessarily stressful to the point of choking. Once we've had a choke experience, that neutral stimulus, the test, gets paired with the negative affect that goes along with choking. And then the next time we're presented with a test, we're more likely to treat it like a meaningful stimulus, like I'm going to choke on this. This is something I choke on. It's a test. I choke on this. So that's what I'm talking about, is that our initial first interaction in that pairing, we play an active role in it, and we make the association, and then it kind of takes care of itself after that. Once you've got an association, it's really hard to get rid of it. So very few things are stressful to everybody. Most of us have associations that have made things, certain items, stressful for us. Okay, so I don't cross rickety bridges. I also don't go down water slides, and I never have. I mean, okay, I have been down a water slide in my life, twice. I went down one that was one of those open style that's fiberglass, and it's like it's not an enclosure. You're just going down sort of like a canal-ish kind of thing, and it curves and stuff like that, and you're given a mat to go down it. Well, of course, I was only like 10, but this is where it's the age at which it's really easy to form associations. So I'm about 10 years old. I'm going down this fiberglass slide. I fall off my mat and proceed to get just fiberglass burns all the way down the slide. And I didn't go on any more rides that entire time I was there that day. And I said, well, I'm never going to go on a water slide again. Then in our neighborhood, we got one of those water slides that is enclosed, and you don't have to be on a mat because it's not the same kind of fiberglass, right? So I went down that once, paid for a whole day, but I'm like, oh no, not going down that anymore. Developed just an association. By now I'm about 14 when I went down that one. And now I've just got this terror association where, like, I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to be the one person who gets launched out of it. You know, those ones that you see on TV where it starts at the top of the pyramid-shaped hotel, and then it's just a straight shot down into the pool, and you're supposed to just be on your back with your arms crossed on your chest, and you just go really fast. I am completely convinced if I were to do that, somehow my foot would get stuck on something, and I would get launched out of the water slide and to my death, right? It's completely unreasonable, completely not rooted in anything logical. And so my kids can't figure out how this could possibly be a stressful thing for me. So we went to the Great Wolf Lodge when the kids were probably like 12 and 9, and they could not believe that I was not going to go on a slide. And so finally I conceded that I was going to go on the smallest slide. And I stood at the top and I couldn't do it. And the lifeguard was like, "It's okay, just, grab my hand." I'm like, I can't do it. So I climbed back down the stairs and I left. So the kids finally talked me into going into the toddler slide. And from a distance, the toddler slide it's maybe 4 feet long. And toddlers go down it. But I was scared at the top of it, and my heart rate was up. I was completely scared. I was completely stressed out by this stupid slide. I finally went down it, and then ironically the lifeguard told me I couldn't go down it anymore because it's for toddlers. And so apparently adults who are scared of slides can't desensitize themselves on the toddler slide. The kids cannot understand why this is so stressful for me, because things that are stressful to other people sometimes seem stupid to a person who doesn't find it stressful. So any of you who have test anxiety may have gotten the impression from other people that your fear, your stress is irrational. I just want to reassure you, everybody's stress looks irrational to people who don't find that thing stressful. That's just how it is. And everybody's stress reaction is their own. So we shouldn't be judging each other for what we're scared of, but we do that, unfortunately. All right. Let's go ahead and take a break now that I've confessed all of my phobias and things that make me stressed out. Actually, I have one more phobia to reveal in another chapter, but anyway. So let's go ahead and stop here. We'll come back and talk about, there are some good effects from stress as well as the harmful ones.